Hello and welcome back to the Forgotten Continent. This is episode 6 of the Planet Coaster series, and today we're actually going to be taking a little bit of a break from the Dart Ride. Now for the last couple of episodes we've been developing the inside of the Dart Ride, especially the actual Dart Ride elements of the ride itself, but I thought I'd spend some time to develop the actual area around it and really get a better sense of the theme that's surrounding it. So we're going to be creating a series of about 3 or 4 facades in this time lapse. But there's also been some effort into developing some of the queue line for the Dart Ride, an extra ride as well, a boat ride, and as well expanding the area around the sides. Now I've actually been away, and that's why I've been unable to upload for a little while. I think it's been just around about a month since the last episode. But while I have been away, I've managed to take my laptop with me to Greece actually, which has been very useful for this project. I've managed to take this laptop with me and managed to get some work in sporadic chunks. So you may notice that this first part of the time lapse will be a slightly different quality to the last part because this is on a laptop. But nevertheless, I think the detail work is very much the same here. I really wanted to capture within this first building a very sort of rustic, almost sort of naval feeling to it. And this is another one taken from the reference images from Assassin's Creed Odyssey. I was a little bit worried about this building because for some reason it does feel a little bit piratey. I don't know quite why, and I think I might remedy it, as you'll see in the real-time segment, as I slightly changed some elements to make it feel a little bit more Greek. But at the moment I really like what we've managed to do here, and we're starting to use, as I use a lot in this time-lapse, is these wooden boxes, that the little crates that you have in the scenery segments, and I use them in this time lapse for shutters, for door frames, there's planks as well. I really think they add a really interesting texture that diversifies from the usual straight wooden planks that we use most of the time. So we're going to be continuing with the style of the rest of the area by roughing up the edges of this using the rough stone brick on the edges, and then here we are using the crates to create the frame of the door. And I really do think this differentiates itself from what you usually see within a Planco building. And this facade in particular I'm really happy with because it is just so ridiculously over detailed. It's particularly piece heavy. I've managed to avoid doing a full custom roof, so it's not too piece heavy. But I mean, it's just what you have to sacrifice, and I think I'm fine doing that with running rather a small part like this. And I'm starting to pull out of the more polychrome elements that you don't normally see in recreations of Greek areas, but here I really want to focus on the different colours you actually got in ancient Greek structures. They weren't all white marble that you normally imagine, and out of here we're bringing the yellows, the blues. Here we're having some oranges coming out. They're actually boys in this, but in the reference photo I've used this, I think they were pillows or something. I'm really trying to pull across as many colours as possible to really liven up this area, and I really wanted that to come across in the very small clutter details here. I mean, they're not perfect. I'm not entirely sure about how these details work out, especially because the referencing image I was working off was very much dealing with like fabrics and cloth and stuff like that, and we just don't have that in the game. So here I'm using books. I'm using books to basically create this cloth effect. I mean, I've done it in the past to look like towels or tapestries hanging from buildings. It doesn't look perfect, but that's the nature of the game. You have to deal with what you're given. That being said, what I am starting to introduce in some elements, I don't do it here, is some start of TMTK. And I know I said in, I think it must have been episode 2 or 3, that I was very wary of TMTK, but since the series has began, it's come on so far, and the stability and integration of it has really, really improved, and I'm so happy to say that. I was very wary of how it does limit performance, and while I have seen some slowing down in the actual booting up of the game, and booting up of the park in particular that's using it, it's nowhere near as drastic as I've heard some people talking about it being. So my original fears and gripes may be averted for now. My only fear is just keeping the art style consistent with Planco style, and making sure everything does look like it's made to fit in the game, and I'm very, very specific on that. That being said, like, to add that extra diversity would be very good. I mean, here I really struggled to create pillars, and I ended up settling for a very sort of simplistic two-tone wooden pillar effect here. But again, when you're using these wooden planks for absolutely everything, to have a couple extra pieces that people can provide would be fantastic. That being said, what I have really discovered recently has been this tiny firework piece, which I've put everywhere, and again it's very piece heavy again, but you can create these very small beautiful details. And well, I did see on the workshop recently there was an addition of some gutters and piping and stuff, which I'm definitely going to introduce, that TMCK pieces. I still think these are the best in-game piece we have for creating these tiny details like fences and gutters and stuff like that. And if you can get past a slight amount of Z-fighting and the clipping as well, I think they look like great pieces. So here I'm just completing the second segment of the building, having a white tone upper tier with a little door, which is again a crate, but I think it works really well. And then having a very small window in the alcove here, all embedded into the stone to give that a little bit of extra realism. I suppose that's one thing that's really been the revolution within my own parks. I mean, if I look back at some of my oldest builds, I think back to things like Costa Royale and Arabian Nights, stuff like the really old stuff I did back in Alpha, into just the start of the release of the game. My biggest problem was using scale, and I never really questioned that a building could be 12 or 15 metres high and just completely out of scale with everyone there. I never thought about forced perspective and things like that. And that's one thing I think Bro Nation has really taught me, and I think things like windows as walls and now using many adventure pieces, it's just completely changed the style of my parts. And I look back at some of my old stuff, I think, well, yes, it was a lot easier to use, the in-game walls, which are good. The in-game walls are really good. It's just the scale is so off. And if I put some of those old buildings next to the new stuff, they completely dwarf them. I mean, this 2-story building here, which is one of the main buildings in the area, is only probably about 8 to 10 metres tall. It's very, very small. But it's all about getting those scales and proportions right. And I think that's the big difference between the realistic parks, well, I say realistic, it isn't super realistic, but fairly realistic parks like this, and then the more casual parks that you see out there. And that's the beauty of this game, really. I was so happy to hear that Planet Zoo in particular was picking up the same building system as Planet Coaster, although more and more that game is feeling like basically an expansion pack to Planet Coaster, in all honesty. It does feel like an expansion on what we have here, which is nothing wrong with it, because I love what we have already. But it does feel like they're building more off this style than they would be off, let's say, Jurassic World Evolution, which I never picked up because it just was too limiting in that it gave you what is going to be built, and you've built for you. Let's say if you want to place a building, it's already pre-built, it looks exactly the same, so everything ends up looking very similar. And having this piece by piece system, while for some people was quite tedious and a bit daunting at times, it's so much more rewarding when you're able to do this. I mean, that being said, this one building alone, which I'm not even finished now, this time lapse is about 2 or 3 hours long for one building. But the effects are so much different and so much more than you can achieve in, let's say, a single poppable system like you have in Jurassic World Evolution, or a purely grid system. And with things like TMTKs, we have our officially first piece of TMTK in this park, the beautiful canopy we have here. I've actually forgotten who that's by, but I'll put a link to it in the description. That beautiful canopy adds so much to the area. And using the kebab skewer statue with the World Fairs pack as the little things that are holding it up. And with that first building is done. Now we're moving on to the second one here. This is actually the 4th iteration of this corner building, and I'm still not even sure about this one. Maybe because of the colours I'm not quite sure about. But this will be the building that basically connects the 3rd entrance into this land onto the restaurant on the right hand side. And this is taken from a mix of things I saw. Some things I saw when I was in Crete, a couple of elements from that, as well as some elements, yes, you get it, yes, Assassin's Creed Odyssey, and also some stuff from paintings that I saw based on ancient Greece. And we're getting in here with the tiny fireworks that create these railings. I I wanted the railings to be a little bit more detailed than what I was forced to go with, but I think they do the job. They're not too piece heavy either, because while I'm not having lag issues, I do worry about that down the line. And just building these stairs down here using I think these are brownstone elements here, to create these custom stairs on the way down. And I've been really happy to see this almost, I'd say it's a bit of a Planco resurgence really within the YouTube community as late. We've seen some great series like Azuri keep on going and keep impressing absolutely everyone. We've had the comeback of N7 as well with things like Nagali Park and stuff like that. And while some notable people are still absent, I'm still waiting in them, Remnant being one of them, I think we've really seen a bit of a resurgence, which is great to see in what we could consider to be the sort of phasing out of Planco now, as we see less and less updates since the Ghostbusters DLC, and of course probably the full focus now will be on Planet Zoo when that comes out. And that's one thing where I've got to really question where myself will go, because I have this project here and I have Trillium as well, and I actually have a third project and a fourth project, and none of them are complete. In fact, only one of them is anywhere near complete, which is Trillium, and it's difficult because you yourself want to complete these projects, but at the same time you're very much aware of what everyone else is going to be interested in and interested about seeing, because you want to say that you create these things for yourself, for your own enjoyment, but a lot of it is about being part of an engaging community, and about bouncing off ideas of each other, and continually pushing each other to the next level of what you can do within the game by having this supportive community. So I'm really happy to see that there's still an interest within this game, even though it's almost 3 years on now, and I'm actually thinking about 3 years on, this game is still gripping me, and it's still giving me so many more opportunities to explore great avenues, and I still don't think I'm anywhere near done with this game. And I'm so happy to say that, and I think with Planet Zoo coming out, I will probably do a bit of a mix between the two, and I think they can both live alongside, because after all, with Planet Zoo is not a Planet Coaster 2. I'm still someone who is far more interested in theme parks and theming than I am in animals and stuff like that, and that's just the way I like to play. So I think that's one of the big things with it, is when you have an active community, like Planet Coaster has had for a long time, although I would say not to the same extent to that Roller Coaster Tycoon had. When you have that active community, it does create an atmosphere where you can create so much better creations, because you don't want to sound bad saying this, because you don't create these creations for yourself, you create them for other people to come and see them and enjoy them and experience this, because after all, that's what the spirit of these theme parks is about. It's about sharing a story, and that's what I hope I'm be able to create here with this. Getting very deep there, but with this very sort of mock ancient Greek setting here with Odysseus and then the Dark Ride. I really want to give a real sense of that you can step back in time into this fantastical land which Odysseus once walked. And that's with the second building finished there, and we're going on to the final one here. And this is just the second corner building on this entrance bridge, which is yet to be built actually. And I wanted to just continue on the style of the big building on the left, which previously stood on its own, and using lots of these sort of rough temple pieces, the different colours, and the windows, drawing the theme across all of them. Again, this isn't anything special really. It's not anything that will draw people too much attention, but that's kind of the point. If every building in the park was throwing everyone's attention that way, it would just, there'll be no focus. There's no real theming to it, because it's just constant barrage of information. Trying to think of a better way to say that. It's like basically there's no way for people to catch people's eye, and people know where they want to go if every building is too detailed and too flashy. That being said, I still am not using any grid pieces. Every grid piece you see on the screen right now does get deleted. I'm still very much set on the full custom on everything, even full custom windows as well, because I'm a maniac. And I also just like things looking the way I want them to look, and I think I don't like limiting myself with using the pieces that are ascribed to me pre-made, and I think that's the best way to create your own thing. But the door there works fine. I'm not going full custom on that. I'm happy to just to settle on that, I suppose. And while this second building here is certainly to do, a lot of it is based in force perspective, and the top floor is a lot smaller than the bottom floor. I think it kind of works because it is in scale with the left building here. I've spoken about my scepticism of using force perspective in Planet Coaster. I love it. I think when it's used well in real life, it looks phenomenal. But when it's used badly, it looks really, really obvious. You look at things like the Beauty and the Beast castle from Disneyland, and it's just completely off. It looks completely off because there's just something wrong about it, and it's hard to tell exactly what it is. Although there's many examples of me using force perspective in this park, I don't think there's anything that's too jarring, maybe other than the main facade to the ride, but there's nothing I can do about that. So I'm just going to finish off here with some wooden elements around the roof, and then actually continuing the roof itself, which will be a simple wooden roof line, bringing back the blue that I've used in quite a few elements of the park. I have a very specific colour scheme that I'm building up here across all the buildings, and these little micro details like the planks on their side add a little bit more texture to the building, make it look a bit different to what you would normally see. And then just the final things will be a little bit of lighting, continuing the final details, finishing off the roof line on this one side, and that's about it really. It's been, I think, a mostly successful time lapse. It's nothing too ambitious and too dangerous. I think going back to what I'm comfortable with, which is building buildings, I do feel like I'm back in my element really. Sometimes dealing with zombies as Cyclops is a little bit limiting, but we're going to finish up here on this final building, and then we're going to go to the real-time portion to see everything else we've done in the time off. Right, and welcome back to the now probably rather familiar view that is the main street up until the Odysseus Dark ride at the top here. Nothing has really changed in this section other than just shoring up the barriers and the details and ensuring that everything sort of comes together nicely, and it does feel very clean now. Since the majority of the work is taking place inside the facade in the actual queue line itself, and on the right hand side as we all visit first. So beginning, if we turn off to the right hand side past the restaurant, you get a little sneak of what is new to come on over there is a new courtyard here. And this is comprised of the facades we built in the time lapse, as well as a sort of circular ruins. I don't even know how to describe it. It's a set of columns, a temple in the middle. A temple, that's the word. That ties the whole area together, a little throughput to two lands. And as you can see, the new facade that we built in the time lapse over there. I'm happy with how it all ties together. It's a very close-knit theme, and maybe a bit too similar to each other, so might need to differentiate themselves a little bit. But I think it ties together fine. On the left-hand side, if the lag will let me get away with it, is a little viewing platform. This extends over here and gives, well, in my opinion, gorgeous views of a tin blue warehouse and unfinished land that I'm going to need to finish. But I think, actually, looking at this, we could potentially put in some little water fountain things people can shoot from, and soak guests down below. I know we have loads of them in the UK, and they're like £1 a pop, so I might put them in here if I can scale them right and fit them in. But again, that little viewing platform is a nice place for guests just to relax at the moment. Heading up to the left-hand side is the brand new facade that we built in the video. This at the moment I think is functioning as a Hat's Fantastic with a gift shop on the inside, and that will eventually be one continuous facade for one big shop that will go behind there. Or potentially a ride, but probably a gift shop will be the best idea there. And I'm sorry, there's no interior, but I think the details on the outside come well enough, and if you avoid all the clipping, it looks fairly realistic. Over here is a brand new ride, the second ride in the entire park, and it's not functional, so the guests aren't very happy. This is built by, I think it's XBZ, a really, really talented creator, and if you look at the staggering levels of detail on this thing, and on the drive tyres down below, and it's just stunning. It's something that I just can never do myself, so I thought I can justify using a workshop item for this because, oh god, because I just cannot do this. And I didn't want to incorporate the massive galleon that we already have in the game, just because it will completely dwarf everything in sight. And it gives little room for a really small little queue line here, a little operator booth, and everything. And I really like how it's come out. So a massive thanks to, God, I hope it's XPZ who created this. It's really, really good. On the left-hand side of it, out of the exit, is the new Delphi Drinks, which is a small drink stand, complete with chilled fireworks, which are selling us as soda cans there, and a small, very, very crude machine for dispensing drinks there. It does the job. It does the job. It's nothing special. It's nothing shouting out to people, but I think it fits in nicely. It's nicely scaled, and I just need something to fill in this little section and add some shade cover. Behind us is the extension to the queue for Odysseus, and this is all brand new here, with the second TMTK piece in the entire park, and I am very unsure about this one. I think the model is great, I think it's perfect, but the lighting, there's something about it that makes it look really out of place amongst all the natural Planko pieces. I think it might be just the way it interacts with the light looks a little bit bizarre to me. So I'll have to see how people react to this, but I really like it. I think, oh my god. Right, I'll be right back. But I really like it, like it works. It just works, and it's right for the piece, and when we actually complete the facade behind it with all the fencing and foliage, I think it's going to look really, really good. Of course, this massive tree probably won't be there in the end, but it's just something to give an idea of what it's going to look like. But if you have a little sneak peek in there, that's where we're heading next. So, slowly creeping into the ominous and vastly underlit section that is the Wanderings of Odysseus. We're going to go in through the main entrance here, and we built this first section, this temple section, in the last video, behind the scenes, and it basically acts as a little entranceway into the dark ride, and I wanted to keep it to a very specifically Greek-themed interior, so looking at lots and lots of reference images, and dealing with the limitations of the Planko objects. I think I've managed to create a fairly good detailed interior. So the main lighting sources here is your usual teal and orange, which has become the staple of the lighting in this park. We're using lots of pieces from the World's Fair pack and from the Ghostbusters to basically create these mini windows here, and these eventually have billboards behind them to simulate the night sky behind them. But I really like this interior. I think it's detailed enough. I think it gives a good impression on the way in. And the lamps up above are really just giving a nice little accent to the area. At the back of it, we've got a fake brick wall here, which comes from the Ghostbusters set, with some drapes around the top, some random cargo, because if you don't know how to theme in Planko, just throw a couple of boxes around, and then some ominous looking balls from deep under the sea. We then exit out into a interior cattle pen here, which has quite smoky looking lighting. I think smoky would be the right word for this, and it actually gives you stunning views out into the actual ride itself, and you can overlook the ride dropping down and everyone queuing up outside and getting excited while you're in here. You then exit out into the aforementioned courtyard, where you can greet fellow travellers out here. I'm really trying to sell this here. And if you can skip around all the wooden fencing and the very dodgy looking TMTK piece, I'll just jump over the barrier, it will bring you back inside the same building where we left off, with a little mural and then into an unfinished segment. But I think as far as the queue go, the length is working out quite nicely. We're having no backups in terms of people coming into the park, and it all seems to flow very well. So I'm really happy with that. That being said, that's all we really have time for this episode. So I really hope you enjoyed this video. Hopefully the next one won't be too much of a delay until I get the next one out. But I think we got a lot done, and I'm really positive with the progress we made. So I look forward to seeing you guys next time.